Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Kelly Bagla. She's an attorney. Let me go through this whole thing. I did some research. She is not just an attorney, she's a dynamic powerhouse attorney. And those aren't her words. Those are words that other people have dubbed her with. And she has a mantra, and it's success takes courage, perseverance, and making bold moves. It also takes knowledge. And so just to kind of go through some different things about Kelly, what she'll tell you is that understanding the legal aspects of business is essential for any business to succeed. And I can tell you, as a former attorney, that is very, very true. I had a lot of clients come to me that didn't have legal advice on the front end, and there's a whole lot more work when you don't have that legal advice on the front end. But she started her career. She worked for some of the largest law firms in the world. And she's worked shoulder to shoulder with some of the best legal minds in business, has a very impressive education, wealth of information on the law, and she is dubbed the Queen of Business Law. She's an author. She's got a book out there called Go Legal Yourself, and that is actually leading into a whole nother business venture I hope we touch on, where it is going to be helping individuals basically do a lot of the legal stuff for themselves, to empower themselves. So Kelly, welcome to the program.
It is such a pleasure to be on the show, Frank.
Well, I guess, I've given a little bit of background. If you could kind of walk through how you got to this place, obviously you went to law school. There was a decision there, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? You probably think that from time to time, right?
Right.
But no, yeah. What was the story that kind of got you to this place, and just kind of share.
Well, let me take your audience down memory lane with me.
Please.
I was about 5 years old, Frank, when I knew I wanted to be an attorney, right? So I'm not sure whether you've noticed I do have an accent. I was born and raised in England, and I am the baby of 7 siblings. So mom and dad obviously were very busy, and all of my siblings went into the medical field except for myself. I always looked up to dad. Dad was a businessman. Actually, he started in a factory. It was a denim factory, and he worked his way up. And before you know it, he actually ended up owning the factory. So he was a huge a mentor for me. He was someone that I looked up to, and I knew that I wanted to at least go into business. So I pursued my career. I went to law school. I had the pleasure of going to law school both in England and here in the US, and finally got myself a very first job as an attorney, and it was with the largest international law firm in the world, Baker & McKenzie at the time. I loved my time there, Frank. Absolutely loved it. As a brand new associate, right? So I'm working 15, 16 hours a day, just really learning how to practice law from some of these brilliant minds. From there, I decided to go off to a smaller firm. It was about 13 attorneys. I was the only female attorney. It was an IP firm, but I really enjoyed my time there. And that's when it hit me, because day in, day out, right, at the big firm, at the smaller firm, I was working with entrepreneurs. I was working with them day in, day out. And I'm thinking, this is fantastic that they can create this lifestyle for themselves, right? And it's not always about themselves. They have an idea, and then they pursue that idea, and that idea is actually, it becomes into a product or a service that helps millions of people. That I was so fascinated with. And that's when I realized I also have an entrepreneurial spirit to myself. So I thought,
Right.
why am I working for someone else when I could be working for myself and making money for myself? And that's when I decided, it was 11 years ago now, Frank. I've been practicing for 17 years, right? I know I don't look that old. I know that. But it's been 11 years now that I've had my own firm, Bagla Law Firm, and it has been absolutely incredible. So I'm not just an attorney, I'm actually a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur too. So that's how I ended up being where I am. And I absolutely love practicing law. I know it's probably an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
I find law fun. It's truly a passion of mine, but I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, but I have discovered from looking into your background, that sounds so ominous, your background. No, but no, a lot of people leave the big firms and they go into private practice and they are just strictly an attorney, and you are truly an entrepreneur, I guess is the best way to look at it. Yes, you
Yes,
practice law, but you've written books, you've been on television. I mean, you're somewhat iconic in what you do. And so I think that's partially what helps you love it. Because days are different,
I
you know.
have to agree. Yes, and the other thing that helps me too is my accent. Like I said, I was. People love the English accent for some reason, but you're absolutely right, Frank. Yes, I've seen entrepreneurs go through the same struggles, right? Why? Because they don't know what they don't know. And I
Right.
love your show because you point out, how difficult life can be for entrepreneurs, but two, how they can navigate, those pitfalls, if you will, that when I was growing up, I wasn't handed a book as to, here you go, Kelly, this is how you become an entrepreneur. Oh, and by the way, this is how you become a successful entrepreneur. I had to figure it out all by myself. Like I said, I'm the first attorney in my family. I never really had an attorney mentor at all. I learned the hard way. I didn't wake up one day, Frank, thinking, okay, I'm on top of the world now. I've written all these books. I've been on TV. I've been in prestigious magazines. It takes hard work, and it takes that making those bold moves. As I said, you have to remove yourself from just being an attorney. If you truly want to help entrepreneurs, you have to experience that yourself. You have to
Yeah.
go through that difficult road, right? So you understand exactly what your fellow entrepreneurs are going through. But that's why you're absolutely right. That's why I love it, because I love seeing the end result where a entrepreneur is successful.
Now, we before we hit record, we were just kind of talking about success and building to success, and you didn't hit the lottery. It was hard
God,
work.
no.
Yeah.
Yes.
We wouldn't be having the conversation if you hit the lottery. But there were other people. I mean, you talked about your father kind of being that, not so much a mentor, but kind of that you idolized him. I think we all kind of idolize our parents, but
Yes.
from a business perspective, you idolized him. Um, how did professional relationships? I mean, you worked for this big firm and then you went to a 13-person firm. That must have been culture shock to a degree. I guess at what point did you realize that, okay, relationships are really important here? Because to get to the firm you were at, McKenzie Baker, right? Is that
Baker McKenzie, yes.
Baker McKenzie?
Yes.
I have a sister-in-law who was at Jones Day, another big
Yes.
firm, and you're there because you're brilliant. I mean, having a personality is okay, but you're there because you're brilliant, and that's how you got through the door. But you've become successful because of the relationships. And so I want to kind of explore those and the relationships you had, and how'd you get from Baker to this smaller firm?
Right. Internal politics, right? So I won't bore
Okay.
you or your audience with law firm internal politics. Let me put it this way. As I said, I never really got any help uh, going through law school, becoming an attorney, working at Baker and McKenzie, moving to the smaller firm. I didn't get any help there. But what I did notice was how not to do things, right? So
Right.
I knew that I didn't want to climb the corporate partner ladder at Baker and McKenzie. I saw the lifestyle that these potential partners were living, and I thought, okay, that's not for me. When I went to the smaller firm, I actually went in, and within 6 months I was promoted to senior corporate attorney. They didn't have any policies and procedures in place, so I did come from a big firm to a small firm, but I implemented all of that for them there. But I also realized I didn't want to run. I didn't want to be part of a law firm where the partner was literally checked out of the business. But I did learn one thing from the smaller firm, and I'm very grateful that I did. I learned how to go out and sell, Frank.
Right.
They don't teach you that in law school. I don't know if they
No,
taught you. They don't teach you
no,
how to, no, not at
they
all. They don't
don't.
teach you how to sell. They don't teach you how to go out and get clients. They don't teach you how to run a firm or any type of business. They don't teach you that. So my professional relationships actually started when I started my firm 11 years ago.
Okay.
Now I have my own firm, the doors are open. A handful of my clients walked with me from the smaller firm, but I couldn't sustain a law firm with just a handful of clients. So now I'm thinking, well, where do I want to create a presence, right? That's what you have to think as an entrepreneur. Where do you want to create a presence? And I thought, Carlsbad, San Diego, by the way, if your listeners are familiar with it, it's a beautiful place to live. In particular, Carlsbad was where I started my firm. So I thought, well, why not join the chamber, right? The Chamber of Commerce. So I joined the chamber. I was an active member. You can't just join things and expect business to come to you. That's not going to happen. So you
Right.
have to be sort of active too. And then so I anytime there was some sort of invite from any business group, I would go to it, Frank. I didn't really sit back and think, oh no, is this going to be right for me, or is this my clientele, or is this, who am I going to meet there? I was so eager to build professional relationships, because sometimes you don't go to a networking event thinking, I'm going to meet my client there. If you are, fantastic, but the way you build relationships, that keep sort of it's the referral based relationships, right? So for example, with me, I joined a CPA networking group, right? I was the only attorney there. They're all CPAs. And I'm thinking they're a perfect referral group for me. When people go to a CPA, they'll say, I'm a sole proprietor. Do I need to incorporate? And guess what? The CPA is going to say, you're making enough money, go ahead and incorporate. So that's a perfect referral relationship. And so from there, I started to become a little more savvy, because remember, this was brand new territory for me. I've never done this before. And so now my networking has become so strategic, where I look out for a win-win situation. Now, my husband, Frank, taught me one thing. He said, never take more than you can give. Those are true words to live by, especially for an entrepreneur that's trying to make a name for themselves. So I've created these professional relationships by going to networking groups, and I cannot speak highly enough of these networking groups where you find the right fit, you find the right referral partner, and those relationships, Frank, they last a very long time.
Yeah.
So I have a handful of professionals that I refer business to, because I use them personally too. So you have to vet them yourself, right? So you
Right.
know who you're referring to your clients. But I still create those professional relationships in business, and they are huge. I don't think an entrepreneur can be successful without having those relationships.
No, I totally agree, and that's really what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but those are the things that I want to come out, because it just doesn't happen. It's built, it's hard work, it takes relationships, and that's really the purpose of this segment, is to bring on successful people like you and show really what you're doing. I love that. I love the notion of joining the CPA group. I mean,
Yes.
that's a strategic idea. It's genius. And most people would say, well, I really don't belong there because I'm not a CPA. And you were like, well, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I think that's great. If you could go back in time and give a younger self some advice, what would you do? You're still in high school, heading off to college. I mean, would there be any advice that you might give yourself?
Let's have a look. I do have to say that wherever I am today is based on the choices I made in the past, right? So choices have consequences. And I think the one piece of advice that I would have given young Kelly is that when you do decide to go out and network, be more strategic, right? Be more strategic from the beginning. Again, Frank, I wasn't taught this. Nobody taught me. I sort of had to figure it out by myself. There wasn't a book written that said, this is how you network. This is how you strategically build your practice until you. So I wish I had met you earlier.
Thank you.
You've got some fantastic books out there, and you are the product, a successful product actually of networking. So that's the advice I think I would give myself, and then even some of your listeners. Be strategic in your networking, and don't be everywhere, because you are going to waste time. But if that's a learning moment, then that's something you'll have to go through.
Okay, a couple fun questions. You married, got a Marine husband,
Yes.
love him to death,
Yes.
and 3 beautiful dogs. Beyond that, what do you do to get your mind off of work? Hobbies?
Yes, so I'm a gym rat. I've
Okay.
always been a gym rat. Always. About 10 years ago, I decided to enter my very first professional bodybuilding competition.
Oh,
Very
okay.
first, and I won my pro card. Frank, so I'm a professional bodybuilder now. I love working out. Always have done. It keeps me sane. I love traveling. To different parts of the world. Last September, before the whole craziness happened, my husband and we went to Italy. That was so much fun. And then just really spoiling my dogs. I truly enjoy doing that. By the way, I call them my law firm associates.
Okay. Well, you do. It's mentioned somewhere in your bio that you will help you're willing to help anybody in business, veterans, women, it doesn't matter. And if your dogs could own businesses, you'd help them too. Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate your time on the program today. This was fun.
Thank you. Likewise.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.